Hi, everyone. Hello, Daryl and Linty London and Willow and Mindy and Mystic Earth and Eli D. and Donald Legursky, Cindy Reinhardt, Echo Twin Systems. Hello. Jam Band Billy D. Cecilia Amarati. Hi, everybody. Stardust Freenet, hi. Well, I hope you're all good, because a lot of people aren't. California, I'm here to report the loss of homes, the rains, the atmospheric river, the Pineapple Express. It's not good. It's not good. Celestial Wonders, Barb in Ohio. Well, we're going to miss Sherry tonight. She's having a birthday dinner with her son. I don't see Marty. Hypocrites Matrix, hello. I'm a skeptic, hello. Hey, Marty. Hi. Yeah, it is very sad. A whole lot going on. That bank, the FDIC takes receivership of, and, well, how many times have we had these collapses that start on Fridays? And then Monday, suddenly everybody's shocked. Can't get your money out of the banks, and whether or not that actually erupts, well, it's a wait and see. But the economy is in free fall. Yeah, Gregory Mannarino is right. It's in free fall. The global economy is in free fall. And it's not good. And banks, even the top banks are playing around with people's accounts, and I'll get to that in a moment. So in one more minute, I'm going to get to the weather. And people are really losing everything. There are so many. Whether it's the economy, whether it's weather. And I will forever be shocked at the non-response of Americans. Sorry, but I will. I really will. Let's see. So, I'll just go to videos because I have to watch what I say tonight, so I'll do my best. But Pete's Coffee, their warehouse, their roof collapsed. Pete's is in Seattle, right?
We're going to turn now to breaking news. The storm turning deadly, a roof collapsing at a warehouse on 85th Avenue in Oakland. One person is dead. We found our Pete Serratos there now. Pete, what have you learned?
Yeah, good morning to you, Kira. Well, we're still waiting to confirm if this was indeed weather-related, but we know OSHA is on site. They were just surveying this area, so of course they'll conduct their own investigation. As they are here, along with, I'm told, a structural engineer will arrive at some point to take a look at this roof collapse. As I mentioned, very tragic morning here in Oakland. That roof collapse area that you're looking at, it would happen in the reception area of this Pete's Distribution Center off of 85th Avenue in Oakland. And as I mentioned, one person has died died as a result of that collapse, another one with minor injuries. Now, what we're learning so far is that it happened around 3 a.m. or just past 3 a.m. The man who passed away was described as a shift lead who worked for the company for some time. We're told he was here early before the shift started at 4 a.m., just getting things ready for the day, and then you have this roof collapsing in this area. Now, I did get a chance to speak with a Pete's spokesperson who says the workers are pretty shaken up by this incident.
I think they're shocked right now. There's no other way to describe it. They're shocked, and people are trying to process just what happened.
Oakland, okay, so it's California, and there was no snow on the ground, rain. What is happening that everything is just collapsing upon people and killing them?
Wild, wet weather tightening its grip on California. A new winter storm moving in, soaking parts of the state. Near San Francisco Bay, heavy rains shut down Highway 12, turning the road into a river. Look at this, flash flooding washing away this main road through town. In the Central Valley, evacuation warnings. Crews are rushing to install sandbags and concrete barriers ahead of more rain.
Once this thing comes out of its banks, we aren't going to be able to stop it.
The storm also bringing more snow.
That's created an incredible mess in front of my house, and I live in a snow cave.
In the Sierra Nevada mountains, up to 8 more feet of snow could fall where homes and businesses were buried in recent back-to-back storms. Kathy Dubois now worried about what heavy rain could do to her snow-packed roof.
It's scary. I mean, it's frightening, and we've had a long winter as it was. Right. Enough, Uncle.
In Southern California, at least 13 dead in mountain communities east of Los Angeles. Residents trapped in their home for weeks, running out of food and heat. President Biden declaring a federal emergency, sending FEMA to more than 30 counties in the state impacted by severe weather. The atmospheric river hitting California as forecasters track a different system in the Midwest.
More than 9,400 people under evacuation orders, approximately 54,000 plus people without power.
As the storms move east, the South could see severe thunderstorms with damaging winds, tornadoes, and large hail.
Okay, the South could see. Southern California, did he mean? Or the South? Oh my God. All right. It's not good. And this is really the first 24 hours of that atmospheric river that extends beyond Hawaii.
And the storm just really hammered the Santa Cruz Mountains overnight.
It caused some evacuations in the town of Felton and caused a big problem in the town of SoCal. That's where ABC 7 News reporter Lena Howland is right now. Lena.
Hey there, Kristen. Good morning to you. Here in the town of SoCal, neighbors are telling me they believe there are possibly hundreds of homes here on the other side of this collapsed culvert behind me that are now cut off from coming into town, from going to work, and are also stuck without power as crews are now working around the clock here behind me, working to get this road repaired. As heavy rain pummeled Santa Cruz County and Bates Creek in the small town of SoCal reached flood stage, a large culvert collapsed in the middle of the night under Main Street, and the road caved in.
I mean, I've lived here my whole life, and I've never seen the creek go actually through the road, so it's just nuts to see, you know. It's really crazy.
Santa Cruz County officials said people living north of Bates Creek aren't able to pass until road crews come up with a safe solution.
One way in, one way out. There's no way. It doesn't hook up with old San Jose Road, doesn't hook up with anything.
Charlie Hodson woke up to this chaos in the middle of the night, and he believes hundreds of his neighbors on the other side of this culvert are now cut off.
So all those people, as I understand it, are cut off from, gas and electric and water, all that kind of thing.
Meanwhile, just a few houses down from this, Nick Malenta, who lives in a tiny home in the backyard of his family's property,
It's like a tornado.
Was kept up all night.
You can hear all night long because the water's so saturated, right? And the cottonwoods especially are so weak. You can just hear them tumbling like, all night long.
He says his family hasn't seen creek levels rise like this in more than 20 years, up until this year.
And it happened 4 times this season.
Meanwhile, as construction crews, PG&E, and local first responders work to come up with a plan for the collapsed culvert, all eyes and all hearts are on those stuck on the other side.
I've done this so many times. And no, I didn't open them up. PG&E conducts weather modification. All the utility companies out in California, the local governments, and the state government, they all conduct weather modification. Well, maybe somebody should look into that. I don't know. Out in California. I don't know.
There's actually a dangerous situation that's been developing for this atmospheric river in California, and we've had reports already of some trees down and power outages to thousands of customers. But in Monterey County, the Office of Emergency Management has actually urged residents to prepare for at least 2 weeks. Because of this storm, they want you to have enough essential supplies to shelter for at least 2 weeks. The reason is this area in Monterey County, this is an area where you had portions of the highway have mudslides and were unpassable. And so within the January and February atmospheric river storms, they were basically stuck. Let's talk to Nick Pascali. He is joining us. He's the communications director for.
All right, he essentially says it's bad. It's bad.
I want to get out to our Fox Weather's Max Gordon, who's in SoCal, California, where we do have a flash flood warning just off to the west there, Max. And I mean, you're talking about the flooding that's happened in this community, just devastating for the people living here.
Sorry, I'm going to click off that because it's pretty much a repeat of the other videos. But look at this. Already. Heavy flooding in Springville. Dozens of homes are flooded, several have collapsed. Kern River. Evacuations have already taken place. Hey, step down. Nice to see you. Wild at heart and touch a class and doing my time. It's the first 24 hours, and already an awful lot have lost their homes. But I mean, the damage is they can't live there. All right, snow also is falling in the mountains. And do we see where this is? Oh, McLeod, California. There's no audio. California. So, when you see this, the mountains of California, up in the Sahara area, up in Lake Tahoe, south of that, the San Bernardino Mountains, that they've literally been trapped for weeks because of the heavy snow, more snow coming, and rain to those areas. It's really not going to be good. Please pray for California. We are flooded everywhere. Where I live, the rain always jumps over my city. We never worried about floods. Well, not this time. We're on our way to go get sandbags. Well, I wish you the best. Sandbags usually don't help much. Not with this, what we're seeing. So, more evacuations in Kernville. Evacuations are ordered around the Kern River. So, we may not have met them, but we certainly know that there's an awful lot of those either who post or their subscribers who leave comments that live in this area. And I sure do hope that nothing happens. So, Alaska. What is this? Alaska volcano dormant for a century. Delivering ominous warning signs, significant unrest. They're not saying that it's going to blow, but they're concerned. Oh, we do have so much going on. All right, so let's just take a look at radar. And so the rain has stopped a bit in areas of California. You see the frequencies up here in Nevada, which that looks like a different kind of frequency that I have not seen. Wow. Let's zoom in. Let's see. So, not entirely sure what this is. Kind of looks like a extremely low frequency because of how defined and long this stretches, but I have not seen it so squared off like that. Yes. Keeping up with the evil is not easy. Really is not easy. So, and I've said this before, when California gets these storms, they hold them and evaporate them before they get to Nevada. The same thing I noticed was going on with these storms. Well, let's let me show you some captures I've taken. This was last night at 9:17 p.m. So, a whole lot of frequencies, that's for sure. I love the very defined pointiness of this storm here. Very strange. but I'm focusing on California. And look at these extremely low frequencies. And as you can see, they're not moving it into Nevada. Look at all of the frequencies going on. But here, extremely low frequencies, and you will see that when the rain or the precipitation hits this area, it evaporates very quickly. Now you have a right-angled storm front. Really? That is not Mother Nature. Look at all of these frequencies that are blasting away in Nevada. You have them up here. You also have them in Eureka. You have them down further, and a whole lot blasting away off the coast of California. So this is when man's hand in these storms becomes quite visible. Unbelievable. Look at this. Look at these. Look all of the defined areas. The defined lines. Some people call them pie cutouts, but you can also see the ripple effect in the precipitation. This has massive amounts of frequencies going through it. You can see the frequencies right here. If you look closely, you can see the very defined lines going through this. As well over here and here, Nevada, you got an awful lot of them. Down here, up here. So the frequencies are keeping it in place, literally just evaporating the precipitation from heading more east. Wow. Well, yeah. Weather modification, destroying people's lives. I mean, did you see that? How, look how defined that cloud is. That's not Mother Nature. This very, well, it also takes on a right angle. So, no, not Mother Nature. Not at all. Got these extremely low frequencies coming out of nowhere. Well, they're coming out of somewhere, but you know what I mean. So more people have their homes flooded, and you know what? This is just the beginning. When all of that snow starts melting, holy crap. It really is not going to be good. So the forecast model. All right, so this starts at midnight tonight. Midnight, March 11. And look at the amount of rain that is coming, well, precisely to their targeted area where all of that snow is. This is 6 a.m., so you get a little bit of, you don't get a break from the rain. You get a break from the thunderstorms, the torrential rains. But they come back. And the rain seems to hang on. Still, you get, you have the thunderstorms by Sunday at 6 p.m., Sunday, March 12, but you also have very heavy snows right that abuts the thunderstorm in pretty much the same area. Continues to midnight, Monday, March 13. They bring back some thunderstorms, very heavy snow. And here come your Pineapple Express, okay? Yeah, really? So by March 14, Tuesday at 6 p.m., tremendous amount of rainfall, thunderstorms, hail, a whole lot of heavy snow still in the same area up in the mountains, San Bernardino. Then they bring in as well a whole lot of thunderstorms. Oh my God. I've never been more worried about weather than I have watching this. Oh, it's not a hurricane, right? Okay, it doesn't matter. The amount of snowfall, and then to bring in massive amounts of rain to that area, that will bring about a destruction of businesses and homes and a whole lot of dead animals and dead people. It's very hard. So this is Wednesday, March 15 at 6 a.m. All right. No, my cat is not being tortured. He's, he just has his screaming fits. Sorry, I didn't have it on live. All right, let me just play this just like 20 seconds.
Coming up this week on Full Measure.
Come on, Mickey Pants.
There's a critical shortage of emergency veterinarian care. Pet owners end up seeking help in distant cities or even other states, sometimes finding nobody to treat their animals. We'll look at what's behind America's vet shortage.
And I have experienced it up in Maine. It's not fun. You have to drive forever. And that was during the pandemic, so I had to sit in the parking lot and I couldn't go in with little one. But for some reason, in the area where I was living, the vets just closed their doors? I think a lot of it is people dying from you know what. So, what is this? It is Silicon Valley Bank. People waiting in line, hoping that they open their doors.
Now, someone who's been facing it.
Huh. What happened? What'd I do? Hang on. Sorry.
And the issues there since yesterday, as far as we know, Ryan Gilbert, he runs a venture firm, Launchpad Capital. Ryan, can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon to you. We understand you were trying to get your money out of SVB. What can you tell us?
Thank you. Well, yesterday in the morning at about 11 a.m. Pacific time, certainly the crowd started saying, get your money out of the bank. And we had a couple of wires that we had set up for other transactions that typically go out within seconds. These wires were held up for about 5 hours on average. We had to make phone calls to folks we knew at the bank, and ultimately the system got unclogged and the wires went out. But it was one of those moments that added unnecessary stress to us and to many others in the ecosystem. And it just showed us how reliant we were on a single financial institution.
Can you just, also just give me more color, just let me inside your brain as all this is unfolding, what you're thinking about. Here you are in the Valley, you've, funded a bunch of companies, you have money in a bank you assume is safe, and then this happens.
Well, I'm a VC. I'm also a board member at a bank in California, and I've got about 34 banks as limited partners in my fund. I thought I knew a little bit about banking to be dangerous, but this episode taught us something really, really interesting, that because the Fed has been raising rates, it pretty much made SVB's existing loans much less valuable. From our perspective, the government raised the costs of being a bank. SVB then picked a very bad day to take a loss and announce an equity issuance. The net effect is deposits started running away from the bank, and those of us who wanted to get out before the Twitter herd beat us were stuck in the plumbing. It's a very important lesson, and I think in the future, treasury management is something that everybody needs to think very closely about.
Where did you wire the money to? Which new institution?
All right. Well, it's a big deal. Silicon Valley's bank's Manhattan branch calls cops on investors trying to pull their cash out as Boston Tech CEO with $10 million in the bank describes the worst 18 hours of my life. Lender seized by regulators and largest U.S. bank failure since the Great Recession. There was a run on the bank today as depositors, many of them tech workers, began pulling funds following a surprise announcement of a $1.8 billion loss. Ouch. Startups, techies, young tech companies. The ripple effect is huge. And this guy, oh my God, Jim Cramer on Silicon Valley's bank, February 8, his show. Jim Cramer is just oh my God. I don't know how people listen to these people, but hey, he said this: stocks still cheap. I think the fears are not justified, and it's a very compelling situation, but he told his viewers to invest in Silicon Valley Bank.
So Silicon Valley Bank in the US has pretty much been shut down by regulators. It's the biggest collapse of a bank since 2008. So what? You might think, that's America. I'm not there. I don't have any money there. What's the big deal? This sort of thing has happened before. There have been a lot of people warning others that there will be complete financial collapse as a result of everything that's gone on over the last three years, compounded by what has been going on for decades prior to that. It's one of those things. When you get a warning, you think, well, it won't happen to me. I don't really have too much to worry about. That's another country. That's another bank. I don't use those facilities. Listen, no one is going to escape this. Absolutely nobody, including you, including me. Even Janet Yellen in America is talking about economic collapse. And when Yellen starts to panic about economic collapse and back up what we've been saying now for years, you know the writing's on the wall. This isn't about escaping what's coming. No one is going to fully escape what's coming. It's all about damage limitation. It's about damage limitation. It's about making sure you don't have all your eggs in one basket, spreading the risk around. And if you do have deposits, large deposits in banks, and the banks fold, and you think you're going to be covered under investors' compensation scheme, you will get a rude awakening. Everybody's going to be chasing money that's not really there, and it's not really guaranteed. Read the fine print, which nobody really does. I just take it for granted that stuff will never happen to me. But anyway, cut a long story short, this is not good. This could be the first domino of many that bring down the entire financial sector this year. And you will not escape. You'll be impacted negatively one way or another. But if you've prepared and you've spread your risk around and you've taken steps to mitigate your debts, reduce your risk profile, you could ride it out, but stay sane. So,
you know, I don't know how long people can ride out what we will eventually be living. Those who have prepped a lot, they'll, maybe be able to ride it out, but who is going to be coming to their door with their arsenal? How many are going to be coming to their door? This is a very bad condition that we are all in. And Americans in particular, because we are a violent people. Sorry. We are truly a violent people. We have gone utterly bonkers. And people think that they can just do whatever the hell they want to do. And we've been seeing that increasing, that behavior increasing to the point where it's rather, I can't say shocking. I'm not all that shocked. I guess momentarily when I see something, I'm shocked because I just don't understand how people can behave the way they're behaving. But then, the big picture comes rolling in and I go, well, here we are. So, those who have an awful lot of money in the bank, I don't know why you do. I don't know why you do now. Because, and then a lot of people say, why should I pull my money out of the bank? Because if everything collapses, then, and then they go digital and, no. Banks collapse, stores still function. If you've got cash, you'll be able to, at least for a little while, be able to purchase things that you need. But all hell is going to break loose. And we do know that these things occur on a Friday. So receivership of that bank was today. Friday. What's going to be coming Monday? We don't know. But everything seems to be moving very quickly. Now, Janet Yellen, I don't know where she was talking about economic collapse because, she's been doing the lying. Treasury Secretary Yellen says banking system is resilient. Yeah. Remember what Ben Bernanke said. The subprime crisis that would eventually collapse the global financial system. He said it was contained too. Janet Yellen, 2017, said there would never be another financial crisis in our lifetime. Oh my God, the liars in this country. Yeah, let's laugh along with Yellen. All right, these people never, ever suffer the consequences of all the evil that they perpetrate upon the ordinary. And it's so disgusting. All right, Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo warns customers of incorrect balances or missing transactions. Customers are complaining of missing direct deposit payments and incorrect balances. But Wells Fargo says, we apologize for the inconvenience. If you see incorrect balances or missing transactions, this may be due to a technical issue, and we apologize. Your accounts continue to be secure, so you can trust Wells Fargo. They had outages beginning at 5 a.m. You can't trust anything. All right. There's also another very concerning development, and circumstances developing. Joint trilateral statement by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Iran, and China. All right, so they all came together. China negotiated a peaceful settlement between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And they are, Saudi Arabia is now permitting other countries to buy their goods and their oil with non-dollar payments, like the yuan. What does that mean for the United States? We are losing the petrodollar, and it's going fast. So Saudi Arabia is the world's largest importer of arms. And I was just looking at this. West can bury its collective head in the sand, but reality is playing out, and the U.S. particularly needs to face this new reality. The United States has been supplying Saudi Arabia with arms up the wazoo, and I found it very interesting that countries are coming together and leaving the United States out. So when I think of all possible scenarios and I think of war, coming to our door, which do not be surprised. All of these countries have been arming themselves to the teeth. And do you think that there are people who respect Americans anymore? Do you think that there are people who actually like us? No. The three countries announced that an agreement has been reached between Saudi Arabia and Iran that includes an agreement to resume diplomatic relations between them and reopen their embassies and missions within a period not exceeding 2 months. And the agreement includes their affirmation of the respect for the sovereignty of states and the non-interference in internal affairs of states. They also agreed that the Minister of Foreign Affairs of both countries shall meet to implement this, arrange for the return of their ambassadors, and discuss means of enhancing bilateral relations. They also agreed to implement the Security Cooperation Agreement between them, which was signed last year, corresponding to another agreement, General Agreement for Cooperation in the Fields of Economy, Trade, Investment, Technology, Science, Culture, Sports, and Transgenderism. No, I'm kidding. And youth. And Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia is now accepting payment that is not in the dollar. Iraq ditching US dollar for yuan in China trade. And I'm going to read some of this article because I found it very interesting, but very dead on. Has U.S. shot the dollar in the foot? Now, I don't think the U.S. is doing anything that it doesn't intend to do. I don't think it's shooting the dollar in the foot. This is all part of the plan to bring down this country. And we are going down real fast. So, who could have known that one of the unintended consequences of the Ukraine war would be the first signs of a shift that could dethrone the dollar as the world's reserve currency? Who could have known? I'm just an ordinary American schmuck, and I knew that that was part of it, so you don't have to be an expert in anything that's going on. A basic understanding of the agendas and the basic understanding of what the World Economic Forum is doing and the IMF. You don't have to be an expert in any field to understand, the global elite, for lack of a better phrase, is literally transforming the world for their own sick, perverted, psychopathic pleasure, to make us all slaves. All right, so we know that. All right, so India now. All right, the sanctions on Russia have been a big failure, but were they intended to actually hurt Russia? We don't know that because Putin and Russia are big players in the Great Reset, and so is China. So they're all, maybe they're vying for, let's see who has, more power, when this New World Order really cements itself, because we're already in it. All right, so who knows? Maybe they are, but this is part of the plan. It's been in the works for a long time. Here we are. But no, these sanctions against Russia have not hurt Russia. India, for example. Uncle Sam's new gendarme, the police in France. All right. Uncle Sam's new police in Asia Pacific, as its principal partner in the pivot to Asia to contain China, is leading the trend out of the dollar since it emerged as Russia's top outlet for seaborne crude after the EU cut Russian oil imports in a show of solidarity with Kiev. Europe and US, we are literally allowing our government to destroy us. All right. Delhi and Moscow were able to sidestep the turmoil from the sanctions and the oil price cap imposed on Russia in early December by working out a payment mechanism in the United Arab Emirates in the dirhams and rubles. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing some of this wrong. There's plenty of worrying news for the U.S. and the U.S. dollar coming out of Saudi Arabia. A quote from Saudi finance minister at Davos said, open to talks about oil trade arranged in non-dollar currencies. China has developed its own set of differences with the United States, of course, and has been eager to push the yuan to the fore in international oil trade. And now America's involvement in the war in faraway Ukraine, especially the sanctions it has forced its partners to impose on Russia, is fast forwarding the process that will encourage other countries to ditch the dollar and bolster currencies like the yuan and ruble. There are already rumors that the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, with a combined GDP worth more than that of the G7, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, and US. Sorry, Sweet Pea, I can't play right now. Are exploring ways to exploit these developments to expand the jurisdiction of the new development bank. So there are so many countries that ignore us now because our power is pretty much on the way out. You know, that unilateral power that we had over the world is fading, and it's fading fast. It's also finally being accepted that America took its shock and awe to Iraq and even partnered with al-Qaeda in Libya because both Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi made no secret of pricing their oil exports out of the dollar. Well, that seems to be well accepted, except with a whole lot of Americans, I guess. The euro in Iraq's case and special gold dinar in Libya's. They wanted to ditch the dollar for paying for oil. That was, hey, let's do shock and awe in Iraq, and let's murder a man like in the most horrifically disgusting, immoral manner, and then laugh about it. We laughed about it. We flippin' laughed. Well, a lot did. So, that America's habit of leveraging its position as the sole superpower to act as a global bully, promoting conflicts all over the world and freezing dollar funds of countries it doesn't agree with, Afghanistan and Russia being the latest examples, has at last triggered a kind of pushback that has not been seen before. With its own economy headed for recession, we're in it. But, okay, headed for recession, as hawkish comments from Fed Reserve Powell send equity indexes into a tailspin and push the U.S. Treasury yield curve to its deepest inversion since 1981, a time-honored recession signal, and questions mount about routing billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars to a draining war on the fringes of Europe. There are signs that America might have created more problems for itself than its enemies this time, with much of the world not responding to its calls for support, especially that it might unintentionally have shot the dollar in the foot. Why can't we have adult conversation with other Americans about what's going on? What has happened? It's really, we're going down fast. So I hope you put your seatbelt on. And when mainstream media comes out with headlines like this, I don't even bother reading the article. How white and affluent drivers are polluting the air breathed by LA's people of color. I know we're on our way out. Because if mainstream media feels they can actually have headlines like that and get away with it, that means we are dumbed down to a point where you know it's over. You know, the curtain dropped. The fat lady sang. Kamala Harris worries about climate mental health. When we have a vice president like this, well, that is still in office, you know, the curtain dropped, the fat lady sang, and is off the stage, and we're done. Listen to this.
One of the young leaders was talking to me about climate mental health. I said, tell me what's going on with your peers. Climate mental health. And she talked, I said, I think I understand that, but unpack it for me. And she talked about how her peers are thinking about it. One example is, whether when they're ready, could they start a family? Yes. Worried about what that would mean. And the stress of it. They were talking about it in terms of their peers trying to figure out, they're going to have to get a job and they're going to have to make a living, but what can they do and how can they adapt the education that they're having now to their activism? One of the young ladies...
God. Just even how she speaks, her manner, everything about her. I just feel like, she's a Valley girl. She's a Valley girl who really should have just gotten a job as a hairdresser or something. That's the vice president. Yeah, climate, mental health. Oh, and we all know that. Can I even say that on? I don't know, because the last community guideline strike I got was you can't say anything about January 6th or climate change. So they're going to be bringing in the censorship on climate change. Will they be bringing it in for everyone? I don't know. But I seem to get it a lot. So not that I'm special. I'm obviously very, very, very small. But they don't let me get away with anything. What is this? CBDCs could be easily weaponized to spy on U.S. citizens. Yeah. Well, you all know that, right? Yeah. Try to have a conversation about this with your ordinary fellow Americans out in your neighborhoods, and you're crazy. And a whole lot of the young, they're so used to using their smartphones to pay for things. It's going to happen. No one's going to fight anything in our country. Sorry. We're just not fighters. Sorry. We do bend over and take it. Congressman Tom Emmer made the anti-central bank digital currency comments at the Cato Institute as the federal government seeks to maintain and expand financial control to which it has grown accustomed. The idea of the central bank digital currency has gained traction within the institutions of power in the United States as a government-controlled programmable money that can be easily weaponized into a surveillance tool. And we all know that, and we're going to let it just slip right on in. Unbelievable. The hypocrisy on the left is really, it's so much more than the hypocrisy on the right. It is so disgusting. But the violence coming out of the mouths of the left, you don't hear too much on the right. Now, being in the Matrix, not a good idea. Get the hell out of the Matrix, because we have one party. And you really get to know how we have one party when war comes about, but it never really stops here, okay? Republicans, yeah, ship those billions over to Ukraine. Who gives a shit about all of the Americans who are suffering? Do you hear them talking about the economy is going to collapse? Do you hear them talking and educating Americans about what really is going on? Get out of the Matrix, all right? It's so... If you're part of the Matrix at this point, you are part of the problem. You are, unfortunately, on the side of evil. You may not be evil yourself, but you're on that side helping them. We have a thoroughly corrupt, criminal government up there. You may as well think that, they're just all part of the mafia. Anna Paulina Luna puts Jane Fonda on notice following gruesome comment about pro-life Americans. What? Jane is at it again? The left-wing activist Jane Fonda? Whoa, another one. Marjorie Taylor Greene reaches limit, reports Jane Fonda to FBI for calling for the murder of pro-life politicians. These people are, perhaps, I don't know. Maybe they should stop getting facelifts, because I think those surgeries are affecting their brain. How does somebody come out and say what this disgusting human being has said?
experienced many decades now of having agency over our body, of being able to determine when and how many children to have. We know what that.
I'm sorry. Women, chime in here. Did you ever feel that a man had agency over your body and there were men out there that were determining how many children you could have? Now, I've not had children, but I will say it's something that clearly I missed along the way, having friends who got pregnant and, right? They're lying sacks of shit. And I can't stand it anymore. I cannot stand the chronic lying that goes on in our country because the lies are destroying us. And these people get away with it? Well, I hope the FBI will investigate Jane Fonda for saying something that was really unbelievable.
That feels like. We know what that's done for our lives. We're not going back. I don't care what the laws are. We're not going back.
I think the women will rise up.
That's the activist.
That's Jane
speaking, and she probably will get a Nobel Prize.
But it's the truth.
Very soon.
It is the truth. We're not going to do it.
Besides marching and protesting, what else do you suggest?
Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a miraculous. What did you say?
Murder.
She's kidding. Wait a second. She's just kidding.
Don't say that. That's
you don't know. They'll pick up on that and just run with it.
The worst.
She's just kidding.
Well, let me talk to you about. Let's move on and talk about Jane's activism, which is legendary.
I don't care what the laws are. We're not doing that.
That's the activist.
That's Jane
speaking, and she probably will get a Nobel Prize.
But it's the truth. It is the truth. I'm not going to do it.
Besides marching and protesting, what else do you suggest?
Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a miraculous. What did you say?
Murder.
She's kidding. Wait a second. She's just kidding.
Don't say that.
It's such a sick show, The View. Yay, yay. Murder, right? And then says it again. And she's kidding. She's kidding. Now, if someone said that and they were on the right talking about people on the left, how do you think that would go over? We have become a people of agendas. Just everything is about agenda. Everything is about agenda. And protecting people on their team by lying and gaslighting, by behaviors that are so hypocritical, it's disgusting at this point. And you get that on both sides, but you get it really from the left. And as a former liberal Democrat, it is so, the Democrats have so lost their way that I feel utterly betrayed. I mean, I don't think I go a day without thinking of my former friends that I had to walk away from because I had no respect for them whatsoever. They had no interest in having adult conversation. They just wanted to gossip about other people. And these were, the people who were quite affluent. They think of themselves as the educated elite. They don't even know what the elite are. But they didn't even care about any of the lies coming from their team members. They only wanted to hang Bush and Cheney for their lies. Obama comes into office. I point out the lies. Oh, I was dark. I was so negative. The justifications. Well, they always have to, pad, what they're saying, just to get the job done. Oh my God. You just can't raise an American off the low road. It is remarkable. And these are people who actually, they got their degrees, they got comfortable in their positions, they made their money, and they stopped thinking. Now, like thinking it was just, God, Carol, you demand so much from people. How dare you? So I was told to stop thinking by one of those Democrats in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. I was told to stop thinking. Okay, I'll stop thinking. How do you do that? I don't know. But they clearly have achieved success with that. Well, there's another march on D.C., anti-war protest on the 18th. Good. Buses departing from Union Square, from Philadelphia Liberation Center, Albany, Hudson Valley, New York. If you want to go, you can check it out. I will link below. There you go. Well, I self-medicating helps. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Jesus, yeah. We don't have a right to leave this world. We don't have a right to leave the world to the kids, to the younger generations, what we're living. But self-medicate. Go drink, go smoke up, and get, so chill, and just watch TV. I posted a video on Rumble today. That I think is really important. Oh wow, it got 12 views. Jesus. All right. I think it's really important. I think it's definitely, certainly worth your time to listen to the 24 minutes and circulating it, really important. I'll play some of it.
And one of the rising stars of alternative media is our next speaker. He's a young man. To me, at my age, he looks like a very young man. But he is speaking so clearly and so well that he has built up a genuinely massive international audience. He is, of course, Richard Medhurst. Please welcome to the
introduction, George. You're very kind. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the organizers of the event. My name is Richard Thomas Medhurst. I'm an independent journalist. As you can tell by my very English name, I'm British. The Louvre Museum in Paris once had a director named André Parot. He was a French archaeologist, and he did a lot of work in Syria and in that region, and he viewed it as so important to our human heritage as the cradle of civilization that he said every man has two countries, his own and Syria. And for me, that's quite literally the case. From my mother's side, my family is Syrian Christian, so I've been very blessed, privileged in my life to have Arabic as a second native language and to understand and to be immersed in the Syrian Arab culture. At the same time, I've had my eyes open to what NATO exactly is, because NATO member states have been waging a proxy war against Syria in the same way they've been waging a proxy war against Ukraine. And since 2014, since the Maidan coup, you've had people burnt alive in Odessa. You've had NATO training Ukrainian troops for interoperability with other Ukrainian troops. The Minsk agreements fell through. And unbeknownst to many, because the media don't do their jobs, you've had thousands of ethnic Russians and Russian speakers killed in the eastern parts of Ukraine in the Donbass region. Now, I know it's very easy in the West, it's very comfortable in the middle of London to just get on the podium and start criticizing Russia and pointing fingers at other people because we're not there. It's very comfortable, it's too easy to do that. It's too simple. And this event, this is about opposition to war and opposition to NATO. So what is NATO? Well, NATO was originally created, supposedly, to protect us from the evil Soviet Empire. What Soviet Empire? We're in 2023. I was born in 92. My entire life, there has been no Soviet Union. Why did NATO double its membership from 15 to 30 members? And now we've got Finland and Sweden on the way to protect us from some imaginary Soviet Union? What's going on? And so, during the 2+4 negotiations, our Western diplomats told the Russians that if they support German reunification between East and West, they won't expand NATO. Well, that was a lie. You can go online right now. You don't have to take my word for it. Just look up the minute meetings, right? The meetings minutes. So these are the recordings from the meetings. Our diplomats talking amongst themselves how we won't expand NATO, and it's out of the question to put Poland into NATO because Poland's a Soviet satellite state. And here we are, Poland is in NATO. So we have crept up on Russia's doorstep. What do you think the Russians are thinking when they look at that? This is not rocket science. This is a very, very simple, basic rule of geopolitics and international relations. When you have an adversarial military alliance on your doorstep, you're going to freak out. If Ireland and the French jumped into a military alliance with Russia, we would freak out. Yes? If Canada and Mexico jumped into bed with Russia in a military alliance, the Americans would freak out. And there's no need to hypothesize. You can go and just look at the Cuban Missile Crisis. They drummed that into your heads at school, right? It's considered one of the most important points in the entire Cold War. And a lot happened during the Cold War. That's how threatened the Americans felt, that we still talk about that to this day because the Soviets put missiles in Cuba. So we're just supposed to assume that they don't feel threatened when we are at their doorstep? What kind of thinking is that? And then you have people say, no, but come on. NATO is a defensive alliance. It's a defensive alliance. So when NATO bombed Serbia, they bombed Yugoslavia, that was defensive? Yeah? When they bombed the Chinese embassy, that was defensive. When they bombed the TV station, that was defensive. When they sent NATO-backed rebels to lynch Gaddafi on camera like some rabid animal, that was defensive. They bombed the largest the great man-made river, the largest irrigation project on this planet. That was defensive. That's civilian infrastructure. They turned Libya into a failed state. I love how we just go and destroy countries and call them failed states like we had absolutely nothing to do with it. It's a failed state. They're just stupid, you know. That was defensive, apparently. We turned the most prosperous nation in Africa into a failed state. It's got slave markets now. It was all defensive. And then, of course, we have our special forces, the SAS, running around with the Australian SAS, executing young Afghan boys and men in their sleep, in their homes, planting weapons on them. That's also defensive, apparently. We occupied Afghanistan for 20 years. That was defensive. Obama was drone striking funerals, drone striking weddings in Yemen and Pakistan, also defensive. And then Trump goes and bombs Syria over some fake chemical attack that never happened with other NATO member states, with the French, with our planes, and that was also defensive. Well, I'm calling up my cousins one by one to see if they're okay. And then Turkey, another NATO member state, is letting fighters come into Syria, is letting weapons come into Syria, and buying oil off of ISIS. And at the same time, the Americans have a rat line. That's Operation Timber Sycamore. $1 billion. It's one of the most expensive operations. Just running weapons from Libya into Syria into the hands of jihadists.
I see he's talking the media lies, Oracle of the West. What media lies is he talking? What media lies? I'm going to wait for an answer. Have a Facebook friend who is very well known, musician, Ukrainian guy, who just married a Ukrainian lady, went there to get her, showed actual video of war, shocking. What media lies is he talking? All mainstream media lies. All mainstream media lies. Wow. What media lies? Mainstream media words to confuse. Maybe I missed something though. Wow. Yeah. I have no clue. I have no clue what these people are talking about when they talk about mainstream media lies.
We killed 1 million people in Iraq with the Americans, 1 million people. We made millions more refugees. Apparently, that was also self-defense. We have an entire Arab leadership executed on camera. Saddam Hussein, Colonel Gaddafi, executed on camera. That was defensive. We have a pretty funny definition of defensive at NATO, don't we? Where was the outrage? Where was the outrage? Every single day there's outrage, there's empathy, there's an outpouring of support for Ukraine. And surely there should be. But where was the outrage for all of this, all these massacres that NATO perpetrated? Where was it? There's nothing. We killed millions. No outrage. The other day, after the earthquake in Syria, Israel, while people are still under the rubble, Israel bombed Syria. Where was the outrage? The Israelis raided the West Bank in Nablus. They killed 11 Palestinians, a 16-year-old boy, 3 elderly men above the age of 60. That was also something self-defense. Was it again? No outrage whatsoever. We just reward them with more weapons. We give them more political coverage. We give them all that they need. And then when it comes to when it comes to Russia, we start to point the finger. We have no legitimacy. Don't talk to me about Russia violating international law or Russia annexing this and that. We invented this stuff. We invented this crap. You know, there's a UN peacekeeping and observer mission in the Golan Heights where my parents worked. Why do you think there's a UN mission there? Because the Israelis illegally annexed it. They illegally annexed East Jerusalem. They're occupying the West Bank. And all of a sudden, our politicians have learned these words. They have them in their vocabulary. They know what territorial integrity is. They know what sovereignty is. They finally know what occupation is. How interesting. Well done. I'm proud of them. How about you use that language when you talk about Israel then? How about you use that language when you talk about what we are doing to the rest of the world? Where is the language that you selectively use when it suits you? Ridiculous. You know, Tony Blair, he lied about chemical weapons and biological weapons in Iraq, and we felt so threatened that we just had to go into Iraq. We just had to kill 1 million people. We and the Americans, we felt so threatened we just had to go into Afghanistan and occupy it for 20 years. We come up with any excuse we like, right? We have the right to feel threatened and react, but the Russians don't. And the irony is, at least the Russians can make a case, because we're actually at their doorstep. We're the ones who armed Saddam Hussein originally, and we're the ones who created Al-Qaeda. What case do we have? We have no case whatsoever. We lie, and we exaggerate, and we go wherever we want, and then we have the nerve to talk about the Russians, and to talk about whoever we don't like on this, you know, who happens to be the enemy of the day. Now listen, some of you don't like Russia. Some of you don't care what Russia's reasons are. Some of you hate Putin. All you want is for Russia to get out of Ukraine, and you want the killing to stop, and you want peace. Fine, I agree with you. I also want peace. But we're not going to get peace through World War III. We're not going to get peace by bombing each other until there's no planet left. We're not going to get peace by rearming Germany. You know, the Soviets, they lost more than anyone, perhaps more than anyone in World War II. They fought alongside us against the Nazis. They lost 27 million people. 27 million people. They paid very dearly. They were the first to reach Berlin. They inflicted 80% of all German casualties. 80%, 8 with a 0. 8 with a 0 on the Russian front. That doesn't mean we didn't do anything, but they did the heavy lifting. The numbers speak for themselves. And we think it's a good idea to let Germany send tanks to kill Russians again in Ukraine again. Have we gone mad? This is lunacy. This is lunacy. This is the same country that killed 6 million Jews and Roma and Slavs. This is the same country that bombed this city every single night for months on end. My grandmother was hit by a V1 right here in London. We're letting them rearm? That country, they can rearm? They're spending more than Russia on their weapons now than Russia does in a year. This is madness. This is absolute madness. What have we achieved? We have Germany rearmed. We have Russia walking out of START New, which was the only thing holding together any sort of limits on nuclear warheads. The Norwegians and the Americans thought it was a good idea to blow up our only cheap source of gas in Europe. They destroyed our critical civilian infrastructure. They let out all this methane into the sea. And they're supposedly allies. Wow. They blow up our pipelines and they're allies. That's funny. Who needs enemies with friends like that? Over 100,000 Ukrainians have been killed. Millions have been made refugees. Germany's rearmed. We've got the Americans, our friends, blowing up our pipelines with Norway. Does this spell out success to you? Is that your version of success? What kind of strategy is this? Now, Russia certainly shares a part of the blame, but who egged on the Russians? Who kept provoking the Russians? Who kept poking the bear? You can't just take geopolitics and international relations out of the equation and act like encircling Russia just doesn't matter. It does bloody matter. That's the whole problem. It doesn't mean that the Ukrainians deserve everything that's happening because they wanted to be in the EU and they wanted to be in NATO. It's not about that. It's about the Americans using Ukraine against the Russians. That's the problem. And then they put sanctions on top of it. And these sanctions are apparently so good that oil and gas prices are up, food prices are up, rent and mortgages are all up. Christ, are you sanctioning the Russians or us? The Russian ruble was the best performing currency last year, yeah? French glass industry is on the verge of collapse. German steel industry is on the verge of collapse. And at this rate, I guess the Americans are seeing this as a good thing, because if Europe is deindustrialized, where do you think these companies are going to go? They're going to the United States. Then they put the G7 price cap on them as well. And this is also so brilliant that not a single barrel of oil has actually been hit by this cap. We think we're so smart that if we stop buying Russian oil, they won't have any revenue. Well, guess what? It turns out China and India exist, and they're buying Russian oil like there's no tomorrow. So well done about that. Ridiculous. The truth is that sanctions don't work. They tell you they target leaders. They don't target leaders. That's a lie. That is a goddamn lie. Go ask the people in Venezuela if they feel that their government is targeted or they feel targeted. Go ask people in Iran. Go ask people in Syria. I can tell you my family certainly feel targeted by those sanctions. They have nothing to do with Assad. There's no fuel, there's no food. How does that happen? We're supposed to believe that this is about targeting the leadership? That's a lie and they know it. But in our arrogance, we become so accustomed to just squashing other countries, we thought that sanctioning the Russians would be a walk in the park. It's going to be just like those other countries. No, it's not. We're getting a taste of our own medicine now, and it doesn't taste very good, does it? The thing is that the West is in decline, and the East is on the rise. The Russians have options. The Russians have other customers for their cheap gas and their oil. The Russians are building a multipolar world with the Indians, with the Chinese, and everybody else, basically the entire global South, which is I know we like to think the West is the rest of the world. It's not. It's far bigger than that. And you have people, meanwhile, in the West, homeless cities in America, tent cities, people sleeping on the streets, people sleeping rough here. People are becoming poorer. They can't pay their bills. And they talk about the environment and they hold all these big conferences and talk about climate change. Is waging war good for the climate? How is the Pentagon, being the world's largest polluter, good for the climate? How is using depleted uranium shells good for the climate? Why don't you go look at what's that done to children in Fallujah, who to this day, the babies have birth defects that are so horrendous because of what the Americans did there with depleted uranium. 2 weeks ago, there was a train derailment in Ohio in East Palestine. The toxic chemicals are spilling into the soil, into the river. And people are absolutely, certainly going to get hurt from this, unfortunately. But Biden cares so much about them and about the environment, he decided to go to Ukraine. You know, there won't be a climate if there's nuclear war. I don't know if this is simple enough to grasp, but if we blow each other to bits, there will not be a climate or an environment to care about.
I brought it to 17 minutes. If you watch it on Rumble, it goes to 24 minutes, so there's, another 7 minutes. Yeah, well, Dub J, I read your comments. I have no clue what the hell you're talking about. None. But man, we are really sitting back and just allowing ourselves to be destroyed. You don't hear from the destroyed, though. You hear from the comfortable. And what are we doing? Well, yeah, the West is in decline, and the East is rising, big time. We're such an evil country. That's what is so upsetting. That, it's been going on forever, only increasing. And yes, the people could do something, but we don't. We'd much prefer to just go about our business. All of these wars, certainly, right after 9/11, the shock and awe was what our military was doing to country after country after country after country. That was the shock and awe. And watching, and I did, because some of my friends, they were so tuned in to CNN, shock and awe, every single night. Hey, watch the military bomb the shit out of a country, killing innocent people, and they were like wowed by it. As if it was entertainment for them. That's how CNN presented it, as entertainment. That's our entertainment. And Trump was right in there. He also talks about Trump, bombing Syria on just this made-up claim that Assad was using chemical weapons against Syrians. Didn't even wait for any investigation. Just dropped bombs. I mean, Trump killed so many innocent people. He outdid Obama, and Obama outdid Bush. It's only been increasing. And our violence is so intense. And a whole lot of Americans are experiencing it now. So how anybody could just sit back and not really think seriously about what we're doing, but also not feel the horror that it's not that we've become, that we have been for the world. Dub J was complimenting and agreeing and thanking me. Well, that wasn't my impression. I'm being violent to a peanut butter and honey sandwich. Okay. Well, here, I'll play this before I say goodnight. Play it one more time.
I'm not 100% sure why I'm being asked to share this story, but I'm guessing it's because somebody needs to hear it. When I was 16, I went into what I thought was going to be a normal day at biology class. And when I walked in, all the desks were arranged in a circle in the middle of the room. And the instructor, who had always been a really amazing, loving, kind instructor, was super militant, super scary, and just looked at us and said, "Sit down, shut up. You are not allowed to move, to speak at all, and anyone who does will immediately fail my class." And we were all stunned. I get like, just thinking about it, because I was a straight A student and grades were really important to me, and I was just like terrified. So we're all sitting there silently, nervous out of our minds. And in the middle of this circle that we were all sitting in, there was one desk. And on this desk was a bowl with a goldfish in it. And he looked at us and he took the goldfish and he put it on the desk and he walked out and he shut the door. And we all just looked at each other. We're just like, what do we do? Like, obviously it violated like everything inside of me to like watch this fish die. And also, I heard the instruction. If you speak, if you get up, if you move, you will automatically fail the class. And so we all sat there looking to each other to do something because we didn't want it to be us. And what was a very painful, it felt like an eternity. It was probably like 2.5 minutes later. Hannah B, got up and said, "Fuck this," and took the goldfish and put it back in the bowl. And when she did that, he came out and he looked at all of us and he said, "Look what the world has done to you. You've betrayed yourself. For what?" And I think about that lesson all the time because I learned in that moment that I am never going to be that person ever again. That when I see something that is wrong, even if it's just me, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to do what's right. And I've done that over and over again in my life in very scary situations. But I'm sad for people who haven't learned that lesson because there are so many things that are wrong that if you're too scared to make a difference, you won't make right.
I don't think a lot of people have learned that lesson. And that's why so many people who stand up and do what's right get destroyed. We all need to stand up and do what's right. We all need to stand up and do what's right. So, little early tonight. Be a force of good. Get out there and help people that are in need of help. Live your life honestly. You speak honestly. Work to develop your moral core, make it really strong so that you live the principles that you speak. Be somebody trustworthy. In American society, they're hard to find. Stand out. Be that person. And on that note, ciao.